You're such an asshole.
We have a very interesting request today, ladies and gentlemen. It comes from, he didn't give his name. Hey, asshole, here's a video request for you. I just watched the movie The Big Short. In case you don't know, that's a movie about how a few people made millions of dollars by betting against the 2008 housing bubble. I found it amazing how evil and stupid bankers are, especially the mortgage brokers that were like, read this quote and it says, dude, we loaned a shit ton of money to people with no jobs and shitty credit and they aren't paying us back? What? No one ever really said that. I didn't work at a mortgage broker company. But I do know mortgage brokers, and they're pretty stupid, and they're pretty slimy, and they're pretty scummy, and they're pretty dumb. Everything's great while the economy's growing great, but they never think that no one's ever going to pay them back. You've mentioned multiple times that you were working in banking right before and during the crash, and if I remember correctly, you also noticed that loaning money to people with shitty credit and shitty jobs was a bad idea. Well, I didn't notice that. That's just common sense, but apparently not so in the banking industry, and you taxpayers paid $1 trillion for that. But none of your superiors and coworkers agreed. What excuses did they give you as to why it was actually a good idea? Did they give you any reasons to counter arguments at all? Or did they just give you shit like housing always goes up or mortgage defaults just don't happen? All right, so let me explain kind of the background what I did. Predominantly, I was what's called a credit analyst. A credit analyst analyzes the credit, the lendability, the credit worthiness of borrowers, potential borrowers. And so you get a loan application, you look at their credit report and their tax returns, and you calculate how much can they afford and what are the chances they default and all this other mathematical calculations. But down the road, I ended up becoming senior credit analyst, commercial lender, and inevitably a vice president at horrifically crappy institutions. Be it a credit union or a small community bank, you so crappy, filled with the dumbest people. And I'm not saying because I hate them. I'm saying because I hate them and they were stupid. I remember the CEO of the credit union I worked at, he wanted me to teach him accounting because he was taking classes in accounting. This is the fucking CEO, the big chief, because he didn't know accounting. Anyway, so that is the level of stupid we're dealing with. And I'm going to say it again. Bankers are people who aren't smart as engineers and are lazier than engineers. They don't want to work as hard as engineers, but they want to make engineer money. So they just go to skis and slime. They become real estate developers, mortgage brokers, bankers, that kind of thing. So that's kind of, they're wheeling and dealing. They're the big idea guys. So that's those guys. Me, my job was to take the numbers, mathematical numbers from tax returns, put it into formulas, models, all math, no opinion. Put that number here. I mean, literally, anyone could do it. That number from that line on that tax return goes here. You plug it in, and it calculates the number for you, and you would give them the numbers, right? And then that's where the lies came in. So, there are two types of lies or excuses as to why these bankers would argue against, it's not even arguing against me, it's arguing against reality. It's arguing against a tax return. It's arguing against math. I was merely the messenger, but if you ever think about going into banking, do not become a credit analyst. Don't. All right? There's no reason to even have credit analysts anymore because the bankers will just override it and approve the loans anyway. So the two general excuses that I would get would be actual excuses. Like there was a reason, dumb as it may be, there was a reason we were going to approve these loans anyway, no matter what numbers were showing. And then there were not excuses, but lecturings and yellings. Like there was not a reason we were going to approve the loan. It was, we're going to shoot the messenger. You did it wrong. We don't like your numbers. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but you can also not like gravity. You can also like not like the sun being hot. You can also not like the fact that girls have boobs. It was a delusion, a mental delusion. So we'll go through the two ones that I had most. All right. At the credit union and at some smaller community banks, you have to understand that these are the bottom barrel of the finance world. Your larger banks, your Goldman Sachs, your Wells Fargo's, your Bank of America's, they're going to get the top-notch clients. They're going to get the ones with the highest credit ratings, the highest cash flow. They're going to get all the good loans. They'll take the bad loans too, but they're going to get all the good loans. Then it goes down, the loans that are rejected get dropped down to the regional banks. And they'll pick it apart and see if there's any morsels of food left over. By the time it is literal shit, and you have been rejected by everybody else in the world, you go to a credit union or a community bank, and you usually give the excuse, oh, the big banks suck, man. I'm going to go with the credit union. And you'll walk into a credit union, and it's like walking into Walmart. They're just missing a couple chromosomes, both the employees and their clients. And so what the mentality among these small community banks and the credit unions was, we're here to help the little people. Grapes of wrath type shit. So here, it was completely pointless. There was no reason to do any underwriting analysis or have a credit analyst. Because pretty much every loan I ever looked at, I'm like, this? I mean, I remember we had one guy had a credit score in the 300s. I didn't even know that was possible until that time. I'm like, this guy is bankrupted. He's screwed everybody out of every money. He's late on the tax returns. The IRS has a thing against him. I'm like, this was probably one of the worst clients I've ever seen in my life. And sure enough, my boss said to me, well, we're here to help the little people. And she approved it. She approved it. Keep in mind, credit analysts, you don't have any, you don't approve. You just analyze. That's all you do. So she approved that. Another one, this guy bought a bar, sports bar. And he did a $1.2 million renovation. He needed another $2 million because of cost overruns. The cost overruns were almost twice the original amount. I didn't know any of this, so I go out there. I'm talking to the guy. I'm like, okay, so do you run other buyers? Oh, no. Well, how'd you buy this one? Oh, I cashed in all my life savings and everything. I'm like, what? Yeah, I figure if this doesn't work, oh, well, I'll be all right. I'll just keep on going. And this fool, this arrogant, greedy fool, just wanted to run a sports bar. Named it after his grandkids. And so I go back, I'm like, he's got no money. He's got no money. And these they're not open. There's nothing happening. They're way behind schedule. They're way over budget. Oh, let's just lend him another $2 million. Now, the end of that story, which can be repeated across all the community banks and the credit unions, that gal had a default, not delinquent. Delinquent means late. Default means they filed bankruptcy and they've defaulted. They're not paying you anymore. 1 in every 2 loans was defaulted. And I don't know how that credit union got out of their finances. I have no idea. Maybe they got bailed out by the taxpayer. But it was we are here for the little people. We work with marginal credit people that don't have the greatest credit. They're basically a fucking charity is what they were. And I don't know if you know anything about charity or charity cases. You don't make money off of them. They're scum. They're parasites. That's why they're a charity case. They don't generate the economic production necessary to support themselves. They are net negative economic producer, or they are just economic parasites. And so that was one thing where we would go, the heartstrings. I remember another guy, just white trash, just this trailer park trash. We had like 4 mortgages on his truck and his house. And he bought this piece of crap semi-truck, and it just kept breaking down because, I can do it, my boss can. I was like, who's your accountant? My wife? Does your wife have a degree in accounting? No, but she's good with numbers. But he didn't have that many teeth to punch out anyway. So that's the one excuse. Bullshit excuse, but that's one of the excuses I got. The other kind of not so much excuse, but they would never say it because it would be too embarrassing, is where the borrower didn't have a problem. The bank had a problem. What that means is that the bank had lent someone so much money that, the bank lends you $1,000, you can't pay it back, you've got a problem. But if the bank lends you $10 million and you can't pay it back, then the bank has a problem. And so this puts banks into this catch-22 where it's like, all right, he owes us, what was it? It was multiple times, but I'm trying to remember. Like, once you get into the hundreds of thousands, it starts depending on the size of your bank. But I remember one guy, real estate developer, ended up owing us like multiple millions of dollars. And this was to the build-up to the housing crash. I'm like, the prices aren't there. There's no cash flow. He hasn't filed taxes in 2 years. Something's wrong. Big red lights. And he was delinquent on multiple millions of dollars of loans. And you have a choice as a bank. You cut them off, in which case you're never getting that money back, Or you lend them even more and they'll, well, hopefully the economy turns around, which was said way more than you ever wanted to admit in the banking industry. Because again, bankers are inferior, small penis pricks. That's what they are. They're dumb. They're very dumb. They're dude bros, but they got guts because they stop working out all the time. So what we would do is we'd say, well, we got to extend it and we just got to give them a little more time. We got a little more time. There was another development up in Duluth. I forget what it was, but some commercial development. Again, multiple millions of dollars extended. Construction's behind schedule. Everything's behind schedule. It's like, when the fuck are you going to open? No one ever said that because, again, bankers are also pussies. They never get in front of their clients that are delinquent or default or late clients' faces because they're pussies. They'd send me to do that. I'd have to go play Repo Man, which I enjoyed. It was kind of fun. Anyway, so that was another one. Well, we gotta, there's been some problem. There's been some cost. So, no, Jim's a good guy. Jim's a good guy. No, I know he gone fuck his daughter and his son, and you don't know who's the father of the son or the mother of the father's stepson, and I know Jim's got a problem, but he's a good man. He's a good man. And he go to church regularly. He only fucked 3 other women than his wife, and he's a good boy. And we're going to help out Jim because he's been good to us in the past 40 minutes. It's just these schleps would come flying in with all this money and talking. It's like, it's because their big finance firm was about to be shut down. Oh, can you believe we got this guy? Oh, look at the millions of dollars he's got. Like, I don't see tax returns that are audited, assholes. So that was another one where the borrower didn't have the problem the bank did because we had lent so much money. We just had to keep extending what? Not extend and pray. Maybe that's what, extend and pray. There was some kind of phrase like that. Then there was another one. This shows you how evil bosses are. This happened in the Wyoming way, over in Casper, over in the other towns, which I won't mention because I don't care to get sued. We had these clients, scum, fucking put a bullet in their head, goddamn scum, always on welfare, criminal records, all this shit. They came to our Wyoming Way Bank. And they were always overdrafting on their checking account. Well, one day they come walking in with like a $7,000, $8,000 check. And I'm looking at this, and I look through the file. I'm like, there is no way they just came into $7,000. And I'm looking at the check, and I already knew something was fishy. Because remember inkjet, where it prints off and then the ink gets drier, but then it boots again, and it gets a darker ink, and it gets that stripe. And you look at the paper, it's just regular printer paper. And there's no routing number on it, if you know what a routing number is. So it obviously was a forged check. So I'm on the phone with the fuzz. I'm like, hey, we got a forged check over here. And then my boss goes, whoa, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, you see this fake check? Oh, no, we got to keep them. I'm like, why do we got to keep them? They come in here, we got to hound them in, but we get late fees from them, or overdraft fees. We actually kept these people as clients, because they would always overdraft their $300, $400, $500 checking account, and we can nickel and dime them for $35 a pop. And I mean, and now you're in payday lending zone. I mean, this is the quality and caliber of, well, not this bank's clients. That's just Wyoming people in general. Hey, you guys. It's like, what? They just committed a felony. These guys are forging fucking checks. I should maybe call like the FBI instead of the local, Andy Griffith and Barney Fife. But we're like, no, we make late fees. So you would actually see these banks get excited when we'd have people delinquent. Another one, perfect example. I had a trailer, because that's all they have in Wyoming. They have your cousins and your sisters you fuck, and you got your trailer, and you got your Dodge, Dram, diesel truck. So you're hanging out in the state of way too many chromosomes. And he says, this guy hasn't paid. I'm like, why do we go through? Because every month you go through it. And like, where he's late. Oh, we got to go through our late loans. I say, why don't we just go repossess this guy's piece of crap trailer and never deal with him again? So they say, oh no, we can't do that. We need to get payment, but then we could get a late fee on it. But then I had to go to this trailer. The guy says, bring your gun. I'm like, I intend to. And I went in, knocked on the door. He wasn't there. And then I end up getting on the phone. I just read him the riot act. And surprise, surprise, 20 minutes later, he showed up with a payment. They always find the money. They always find the money if you get in their face. You're not this pussy girly banker with them. But we liked him because he would always be late, and we get to charge an extra $25 as some pittance of a fee, even though it took way more in gas reimbursement. Wyoming is spread apart. To drive out to the place took more than $25 in gas, and certainly more in my time in labor to go knock on his door. We got that $25 fee. Who dang diggly dangly? You Wyoming people so smart. So that was sadly way more common, where you would get excited because you were charging late fees, which in that, again, you might as well be a payday lender. Close up shop, go become a payday lender or a pawnbroker is what you should have been. So that now then there comes. They're not excuses. They weren't excuses. They were just emotional bursts of rage and hatred at me because I was getting in the way of their commission. So let's explain a little bit how bankers are compensated, or they were. You get a salary, then you get commission. So every deal you close, you get a little bit of a take, 1%, 2%, whatever. Depends on the bank. Keep in mind, it's when the deal closes. Fuck all if they pay you back. So the bankers have this huge incentive to just process as much of these worthless, crappy loans as possible so they could get their commission. What's very interesting is you rarely see bankers, commercial bankers, stay with the same bank for more than 3 to 4 years, because after the bank made the loan to the deadbeat, financial deadbeat with a 330 credit score, and that banker got their commission, about 3 to 4 years you start realizing their portfolio of borrowers don't pay you back. And the bank is losing money. Then they jump the sinking ship. They go to the next bank, and they always talk about how much they had in sales. They always talk about how much in deals they had. They never mention whether any of those loans were fucking paid back, which they weren't. That's why they split town after 3 to 4 years. So if you find a banker that's been at the same bank for like 20, 25 years, that's rare. It's usually, where'd you go? They hop from one little piddly community bank and credit union to the other, because they're just shitting on the loan portfolio at these different banks. So that's one way they get paid, is the commission. Another way, not necessarily the bankers, but the banks get paid, is if you can sell your loan on the secondary market. And this brings in the concept of conforming and non-conforming loans. Conforming loans, typically in the world of mortgages. If you have a mortgage or a loan that's conforming, that means it meets certain guidelines and standards by which you can sell it to other banks or other investors on the secondary market. Now, this is a good thing. You may think, well, that's kind of scummy. You're generating a loan, but you're not holding on to it. Well, let's say you're a small bank in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. You have way too much exposure to agricultural trends and risks. So what banks do is they'll sell some of their loans on the market and then buy others. So Iowa Bank would sell, we got way too much agriculture, way too much cow, way too much corn. Let's sell these farming loans to a bank in Chicago that has way too much industry, and we'll go buy some industrial loans from Chicago, maybe some oil loans from North Dakota. And this makes sense. It diversifies your lending portfolio, and it lowers risk. So it's a wise thing to do that. But if you have non-conforming loans, they're so bad, you would be forced to keep those on your books. So that was supposed to stay with the bank. But with the conforming loans, that gave you every incentive to basically approve everything, forget quality, forget credit analysis, forget credit control, approve everything, sell it on the secondary market, make a 2 to 6% sometimes commission on that, and you just get to keep that money. And now it's hot potato. You gave a ticking time bomb to some other schmuck that bought it. And that, you guys know that about the mortgage-backed securities and how that ended up, all those bad mortgages ended up destroying pensions and retirement portfolios and everything else. So these bankers, if you got in the way of their commission, or you got in their way of collecting that commission on selling a conforming loan, did they get pissed. And once again, it's the issue of reality and the numbers and credit analysis running into these bankers' incentives. So I wouldn't get excuses like, well, we're here to help the little people, we get late fees or anything like that. It was just hatred and rage in my face. So things like, you didn't do the numbers right. It's like, you gave me the model. I plugged in the numbers right. If you don't like the numbers, you can't say I did it wrong. You got to reprogram the model. Right? There was nothing. Again, I'm a monkey putting numbers into a formula. There was also, you'd have to write a narrative with the You just didn't give them a thing in numbers. They always want to know who and what, where, why, basic journalism. And I'd write, accurate, not scathing, accurate. They have a poor credit history. They've defaulted, blah, 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 blah. And they just didn't like the tone. They're like, I don't like your tone. And I was like, well, then you write it then. Instead of saying, wow, these numbers look really bad, we shouldn't do it, what they're saying is, holy crap, this kid is getting in the way of my commission, and I got a whore of a trophy wife who's sleeping with some black guy named Jamar, and I borrowed my money to afford the Mercedes that I really can't afford, and I have a McMansion I can't afford. This kid, a 30-year-old guy, is getting in the way of me faking like I'm a big successful guy over in the Waizaze or the Roseville or the, where was the other one I was at? East Side. The Woodbury. All of these pussy middle-aged white dudes who are so faking it with their fucking leased vehicles and were so leveraged to the hilt themselves, I was getting in their way of making wifey happy and making it seem like they were big shots with big dicks. And they weren't. These were, I know one guy, he ended up becoming an artist. It's hilarious. I keep tabs on him, and he's like a fucking failure now. It's great when I follow up on one of my banker bosses died. Still wish I could dance on his grave, but my lawyer advises against that. I wanted to dance on his grave and film it, put it up there. He says, that's not a do, Aaron. Don't do that. I'm like, dang it. So anyway, that was like, that's where the rage and the anger came in, because these guys were just as leveraged as their clients. They didn't have any money. They weren't making it. If they made money, they were pissing it away as quickly as they made it, because they had to keep up with the Joneses. What else? Oh, I even got this one. I threw this in here. One of my bosses got so angry. He says, I don't like the shading of this chart. I put an Excel chart. It's black and white. I'm like, and I knew that was like, you don't like the shading of that chart? You don't like the shading of the chart. And you baby boomers wonder why I hate you with the passions of 1,000 scorching herpes infections. It's dickheads like that. Now, if you purge yourself of these assholes, maybe we might like, the 3 remaining baby boomers that exist and aren't douchebags. But this is standard stuff, like this piddly little crap. And then finally, I think the one that, and I could go on, but one of them, I'll tell you another one, was that you don't understand this man's business. That was another one they'd always give me. Is you get these guys, typically real estate developers, that were running a racket. Many of them I found out got investigated, thrown in jail. All right? A lot of you guys say, oh, no one paid the price. There have been some people that got busted on fraud, embezzlement, all this other stuff. Mail fraud, because the U.S. Postal Service gets into it. This guy came in one time, and I think he had 50 individual LLCs. And tax return like this. And he wanted $100,000. Now, you got to do the math. It's going to take the maintenance to go through and underwrite and babysit this loan, even if we charge a 10% rate, and he paid it. That's $10,000. We're going to spend more than $10,000 in labor and resources just managing this loan. And this guy was on my ass to get this $100,000, but he was like this big dude, and he had boats at Lake Havasu and all this other shit. I'm like, what? If he's such a big dude, one, why is he at our shitty bank? Two, why does he need such a pittance amount as $100,000? And why are you riding my ass to get this? So I'm going through this thing, and I get through it, and in the end, I'm like, he's not making money. I had a big-ass spreadsheet. I'm going through it. He's not making money. He's losing money. And I put that in the report. You don't understand this business, why you don't take the time. And this is the guy who ended up becoming an artist later on, by the way. And I gotta tell you, you think you're, it's just this baby boomer, inferior human piece of fuck getting in my face. And I looked at him, I'm like, okay, here you go. And he wasn't my boss, that was the other thing. Banker, you usually answer to a senior banker or something. None of these bankers are answered to. So I gave him the file. Well, then you underwrite it. No, he didn't like that. He didn't like that at all. Then my boss, you're not a team player, da-da-da-da. Well, 2 weeks later, guess who comes up to my office, my cube? It's Mr. Banker Douchebag. Say, are you working on that loan? I'm like, no, I'm not. I already did the underwriting, and if you didn't like the writing, you go ahead and do it yourself. Well, don't work on it anymore, and I'm going to need the files if you have any. I'm like, oh yeah, what's that? Well, the FBI is here, and they need his files. They're investigating him. I'm like, oh, doobie dabby dabby doo. Fake it. And he never worked in banking again, but that was my favorite. You know, these limp dick, small peen-eyed baby boomer banking bosses who had no money, nothing saved up, who had only ego, these dude bros, these ancient, outdated dude bros who still had to keep it up, man, they had to keep it up, doing everything they could to screw over the shareholders of the bank, the taxpayers of the United States, and then yell at people like me because we just analyzed the loan and said they're not making money, and by the way, they're a year and a half late on their other tax returns. That those were not, again, the excuses, but the rage or the pressure or the anger or the threatening that I received in banking. And so those are the two general types. There were sometimes, they're not legitimate reasons, there were specific reasons they gave me that we should approve this loan, and the numbers proved not, reality proved not. But then what was usually more common, especially as we got towards the beginning of the crash, was this panic. Like, they'd just get angry and get in your face. You don't know how to do your job. And every one of these bankers got fired. Every one of these banks got bailed out, except think for one. I've watched these bankers. I've paid attention to them. And they're either not in banking anymore, thank God. They're dead. Or they're in banks, but they're still at these shitty local community banks, and they never amount to anything in their lives. Now, if you like this, if you enjoyed this, my first book I ever wrote was called Behind the Housing Crash. I started writing it a year before the housing crash happened, stopped because I couldn't find a publisher. Then I'm like, well, I'll just do self-publish. I'm so good. You wonder, hey, Aaron, how good of an economist are you? I'm damn good. I am. That's why I charge a lot. So I don't work in banking anymore. My book was published on the day Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy. It's like a brilliant, one of my proudest pieces of work. So if you liked The Big Short, get my book Behind the Housing Crash. It's really good. It's very good. It's kind of like a detective whodunit, from the view of an analyst, and the crescendo and all that. And even though we all know what happened in the housing crisis, you might like it because it just shows you what inferior, small-dicked, small-penised pieces of inferior shit bankers are. They're like your wannabe jocks who just didn't want to work hard, and they get theirs in the end. It's a beautiful book. So that's available on Amazon.com. Anyway, that's it. You guys got questions, I got answers at assholeconsulting.com. You can find all my other books on Amazon.com. Paperback, Kindle, audio. We got the Clary podcast on SoundCloud.com. Patreon.com/Aaron Clary. What else? Cappy Capitalism, Blogspot, all that other stuff. I don't know. Just tell people about America's older brother. Send them my way. We'll help you kids out. We'll see you guys later. Toodles.